All right. You gonna play the music?
Yeah. Well, if I can remember to pop it up when I'm supposed to.
Remember to pop it up
Yeah. That too.
when you're
But
supposed to.
but bump. Give yourself a bell there. All right,
Woo!
you
It's
ready?
gonna be that kind of show, huh?
Yeah. Are you are you ready to start this thing? Let's do this.
Let's do it.
I got my tea. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my NPR voice. This is Slip Into the Night, Episode 3, Fate and Destiny. Tonight, we'll put you to sleep as I talk in this very droning on voice. Breathe in and out and listen to the sound of your breath. Now reach under the covers and play with your genitalia.
You really are making it that kind of show.
Good evening, everyone. This is Slip Into the Night, Episode 3. We are talking to you tonight about one of my favorite topics. Like when you brought up the idea of doing this, this is something that I love thinking about and I hate thinking about at the same time. Like I definitely have a love-hate relationship with the whole idea. I I tend to go down these really deep rabbit holes when it comes to the idea of causality or fate or free will. And you had sent me a bunch of information, and not to dismiss you, I didn't look at a fucking bit of it, Holly. And here's why. Because when you brought up the show topic, I know what I want to talk about when it comes to these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to spoil myself with any of that and just talk to you about your ideas,
Mm-hmm.
where I am at with that whole thing, where I've gotten to, because they're very interesting questions. These questions of, do we have free will? You know, when I started this show tonight, did I have a choice?
Right.
Or was this preordained? And those questions, I think, have plagued man for a long time. If I'm being completely honest.
No, I think it really has. And I think one of the things I did in that research that you didn't look at, but, it's totally fair that you had already had your opinion and you didn't.
Well, no, I just didn't want. I didn't want to uh, look over the material and not have it change my opinion, but change the direction of how I would choose to discuss things tonight.
So you've predetermined the discussion.
Not so much predetermined, but I have this understanding of these concepts, and I know where my brain goes with them. So I just wanted to let it naturally go there and talk to you about it, rather than
Mm-hmm.
try to weave through these other things that you're going to have an understanding of anyway. And then I can just weave my understanding of things through that. That was
Mm-hmm.
more my thought process about it. It wasn't like, here, I'm just going to predetermine this roll of the dice. But
Right.
yeah, and excuse me. I definitely have thought about this a lot in my life. This is not something I haven't, I've only spent like a minor amount of time thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Which the show before last we did on clairvoyance, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to think. Yeah. So, and I talked about the experience I had as a young child, where
Mm-hmm.
I saw this thing happen, like a daydream, and then
Mm-hmm.
I experienced it later on. So this, these ideas in that has been bred this idea that I have this fascination with causality
Mm-hmm.
and where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is our future determined? Is our whole life determined? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those questions that has preoccupied humanity for a long time. I mean, one of the you could see that there is a lot in the mythology that is around this subject. The ancient Greeks, they had the fates. They were the goddesses that spun the thread of life. They determined how long it was, and then they cut it. And for every single person, and the Norse mythology has something very similar. They have the Norns, which again are these kind of three wise women who kind of spin the thread of life. And
Mhm.
there's other mythologies and other belief systems around that you are coming here, and what you're set out to do has already been determined for you, but you just kind of have to go and experience it. And it seems to be much more of a modern thought that we have free will and that we kind of show up on the planet and have this endless possibility of whatever we have to do. I don't know really when that thought shifted, or if if it's just one has become more weighted than the other. But was certainly, like, right now, I think our culture is much more in the free will mode of you can choose to do whatever you want to do. But there's definitely that other thing, that things, thought process or belief system, that everything is fated. And certainly the ancients did a lot of their divination and some of their systems like that to kind of understand what the fate of a person was, because it
Mhm.
was something that was predetermined. And you see
Yeah.
that with this astrological stuff and divination, and even like the fates of kings. And you could see that that's why they had made these giant stone circles. The stone henges are part of that function. Could have been understanding the fate based on the calendar and the stars.
Right. Um, and the more and more that I think about it, the more I drift away from the idea of free will. I do. Because everything in this universe has a cause and effect to it. And it's been happening since the beginning of time. I think it's so complex we don't understand it, and that our egos have given us this idea of free will. But I think more and more, I'm beginning to think that this life, this is an experience that we're having. We're here, we're having it. It's a predetermined experience. You will go from point A to point B. Enjoy the movie.
Or the amusement park ride.
Right. Or the ride. You bought the
Yeah.
ticket, take the fucking ride. You're going to
Right.
go up, you're going to go down, you're going to go all around. Things are going to be scary, things are going to be happy, things are going to be good, they're going to be bad. You're going to piss yourself, you're going to shit your pants, you're going to be happy, you're going to be drunk. Things are going to be beautiful, things are going to be shitty.
Hmm.
But, you know, it's, it's an experience.
Hmm.
You still get to experience it. You still get to grow from it. Does it mean it's meaningless? I don't think it's meaningless. I don't
Hmm.
think that justifies it as being meaningless.
Right.
Um, but again, I go back. I don't know. I tend to think more and more as time goes on that that's the way it is. That our lives were predetermined from the moment of the Big Bang.
Hmm.
They say, if you look to the ancient, I'm not going to say that I hate to give the Bible any credence, but, you know, God in the Bible or in a lot of these texts or mythologies is an omniscient being, knows all, sees all,
Hmm.
always has, always will,
Hmm.
because it's all there. And I wonder if we could ever create a computer fucking smart enough if it could trace that from the beginning to now and be able to see everything that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very infinite thing. So I don't know if any computer will ever be made that can fathom it.
Right. So I kind of feel similarly, but I also think that there is some, I think that there is probably something of a plan, but I
Mm-hmm.
also allow for the possibility that that plan is a flexible thing,
Right.
and that in the
Well,
you may go on the ride thinking you're going to have a certain experience, but while you're on the ride,
right.
you may have certain choice points that
Well,
somewhat can you know modify the experience.
right. Well, it's like I was talking about Crowley's explanation of our lives and understanding things, looking at your life like a river. You can't change the river. You can't change the course of it, but you can put yourself in better spots. So in that, I do think maybe there is some credence to the whole free will idea. But I think that more and more that there's more fate to it, more concrete. This has happened, so therefore this is going to happen, and then this, and then this. And it what people will look at it and they'll go, but it's too complex. There's too many variables. It doesn't fucking matter. The amount of variables don't matter. The fact is that they're all there.
Right. Well, so you have the people who are under, and the reliability of a hypnosis aside, there are people who have been hypnotized and reported either past life experiences or these life between lives experiences where they say that they are being incarnated in a lifetime
Hmm.
and and before they come, they have a plan before they get here. So, and I do not know, because I have not had that experience. I do not know if that is the way it is, but that is one perspective of a a possible way of explaining this, is that there is a certain amount of pre-planning before an energetic being incarnates into a physical human body, or however you see to describe that they kind of come here. There's certain other people that they're planning to meet up with along the way, and to have a certain experience.
Yeah.
you know I don't have any evidence for or against that. It's all
No,
hypothetical.
no one does, and no
No
one
one would.
can.
It is solely based on reported stories of people who have undergone hypnosis, which there are some questions around the validity of hypnosis.
Yes. Um, and I think there are some good practical applications for hypnosis, but by and large, I think it's a lot of hooey, in my own opinion. So I mean, I don't know, excuse me, how much flexibility um, we have in all of this. Uh, I don't know. I have questions. I have questions, Holly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember
And I don't,
being.
and you can't ring up God on the phone. You can't
Some
be like,
people
hey,
believe they can.
hey, dude, what's going on down here? Because if we could, like, we wouldn't have any of these questions. And people can say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't question. You should just have faith." Well, no, I don't see that. I should question all of this.
Mhm.
On a constant basis. I think that's my job.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've had certain points in my lifetime where I have felt like I have had the opportunity to make a decision one way or the other. And I have known that once I make that decision, that is just like setting the next um, kind of sequence of events.
Right.
And one experience is when I was in a very, very bad accident when I was 18. It really could have killed me or seriously maimed me, but that was not the outcome. But I remember being knocked unconscious and kind of having this kind of dreamlike experience where I was kind of basically given the choice: do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I was like, no, I'm going back. And when I remember coming back too in the um basically upside down car in
Mhm.
the ditch basically, and being like, oh gosh, I'm here, and it felt very like a very weird experience, like, where it was like, okay, I'm back in my body, but this is not cool where I'm at, but I'm back on Earth. And then, this whole shock of that, just getting in that really bad accident, it made everything really weird. But in retrospect, I'm like, huh, I really felt like for a moment there, I was a little bit out of body. And given this choice, like I can stay wherever I was, or I can go back in my body and keep going.
Mhm.
And I do think that to me, it does make sense that those choice points exist.
Well, like I said, I do think that we have some type of leeway, but I think for the most part, everything's pretty secure. Like I said, I think it's a lot like that river analogy, um, or metaphor. I don't know which it is. Uh, Maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know, but I I I, I like that symbol, the symbol of the river. I think it's very fitting.
Mhm.
Um, we can move around on the river a little bit. We get a
Mhm.
little bit of we can do a little bit of course correction, but we're going in that direction. We're gonna wind up where that river dumps out.
Right. And
And
I mean,
that
I
eh,
somewhat agree with you, but I also, from my shamanic perspective, I feel like, yes, you have that level of perception that you're on the river, but you can also change your level of perception where you are up above, up on the cliffside of the river, and you can see where you're going, and you can make course corrections from outside
well,
of the river from a different level of perception, and then you can also change the energy
no,
beyond that.
I completely agree with that. I think you
Okay.
can make course corrections to your path on the river, but the river isn't going to change. I don't think you can change the river. I think you can put yourself in better positions to deal with the river, um,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
where it's going to take you. But eventually you're going to get to that point where your parents pass away. That's there. How you
Yes.
deal with that.
Yes.
That's I think that's in and of that I think we get a little bit of leeway.
Mhm.
But I think our psychology is also very cause and effect. I think, because these things happened to us when we were young, this is the
Mhm.
person that we became. And that's, it's funny because I watch a lot of stuff on serial killers, and they'll say, these recipes for serial killers, we can kind of look into it and we can kind of tell, but not
Mhm.
everybody becomes that person. But I
Mhm.
think, like I said before, I think if we had a computer that was powerful enough
Mhm.
that could look at every variable,
Mhm.
that they would be that an artificially intelligent creature would be able to tell this is what's
Mhm.
going to happen.
Mhm.
I do believe that because it makes sense. I don't know why it makes sense to me. It just does.
Mhm. Right. Um.
And I think all that matters is my understanding of it all at this point. Like
Oh,
what I can take away from it. Because what else do we take out of this life?
well, right. And I think the thing is that if you are comfortable with what your path is, and your relationship with either fate, free will, or your destiny, and that you are happy with where you're going, or if you feel like you need to make a change, you feel empowered that you are able to make that change.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things that prompted me to bring up this discussion was we had requested suggestions for shows, and one of the ones that caught my eye was Chubb's something about luck. And
Mhm.
so when I kind of thought about luck, I do think it kind of ties into this idea of fate and free will. Are some people just fated to be very lucky? Do they just have like a magic golden touch that good energy and good circumstances come to them? And then on the other hand, are there some people who just have this kind of streak of unlucky energy? or
Mhm.
bad luck? And is that a thing, or is it an energetic thing? Or is it this kind of like fated, like scripted circumstances? Like you're gonna have this, you're gonna on the lot on the ride that's gonna have a lot of like experiences that you're not gonna feel are all that pleasant, like the boogie ride,
Right.
right?
No, I don't think that there is much to the whole idea of luck. I think that, good and bad luck are very subjective. I think that people who tend to have good luck also tend to do a lot more things, and they're more aggressive in going after things. I don't know if I'm describing it correctly, but they're different types of people. These people that you would see that you would say this person has a lot of bad luck or doesn't have a lot of good luck, and this person does have good luck. I think that the people that have good luck or seem to have good luck, I think there's a reason behind it. I think that there's the mentalist there is it Darren Brown. He did a whole episode about luck.
Mm,
And they made up a story about the dog and the dog statue in the park, and if you like touch the dog statue or kiss the dog statue or some shit, that you'd have good luck. And
mm-hmm,
then they did, they went through, they did all this shit. It was a very interesting thing.
mm,
My son also slapped me across the face with that one when I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he's like, "Dad, they filmed it. I don't buy anything that's been pre-filmed." I'm like
oh my
I'm
god.
like, "Good point, good point." And he gave me a perspective that I hadn't thought about. In that moment, I was like, "Oh shit, my son just freaking gave me something I wouldn't have even looked at in the moment."
Hmm.
But I think that good and bad luck are very subjective. It's a very perspective based.
Hmm.
Like if you understand all the variables, you can go, well, of course this guy is having all these good things happen to him.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I can see it in different ways. I think that in some, I can see it from an energetic perspective. That I think that sometimes if you have very positive energy, no matter what happens to you, can kind of spin it into a very positive direction, and you can kind of carry that momentum through your life. Um, and it's likewise that if you kind of have a more negative point of view in your life and everything, you're that glass half empty kind of person, and then you kind of keep on that train of thought that you can kind of maybe skew everything to be, oh, I never have good things happen to me, and a little bit more of a negative thing, and in that case it becomes very subjective.
Mhm.
Going back to the ancients, you know this was a big thing for them, and this is where one of the things that they looked at in astrology, and they were looking at the natal charts of different people and doing assessments on, are you
Whoa.
um,
Your audio just went all crazy.
it went all crazy, huh?
Yeah, it went all crazy. So
Crazy.
so so rewind back up.
So going back to the ancient Greeks, and even before that, to the early people who studied the stars, they were really looking to see if your stars were maltreated or somehow bona fide. Bona
Mhm.
fide meaning that they had a lot of good things going for you, or maltreated that the energies from the stars were not um, working in your favor, so to speak. So they were really looking at in the ancient days to see your fate or fortune in the stars, and were your stars working for you or not.
Mhm.
um so that would be another perspective there, that is going into the kind of divination and trying to look into your star energy and into your personal energy to see if you are attracting kind of better circumstances or
Mhm.
less fortunate circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm way more about the idea of fate, the idea that there's this whole path. But it's very hard not to believe that we have some type of leeway. And I don't know. I'm 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 just as lost as everybody else, but I question it.
Hmm.
My brain's just the type of brain that's going to do that.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I'd like to be able to ring God up. I think that's or whatever the creator thing, person, entity. Maybe it's an AI. I don't know.
Right. I mean, it could be. Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
funny? Like,
Well, I mean, in and of itself, that would make sense. If that's the case, if this is like a thing, a planned
mhm,
thing, it makes
mhm,
sense. But we have these complex, minds, psyches,
mhm,
psychologies about us.
mhm,
That I don't. So I just don't know. I think that, but I do think there's this that there are so many variables that we can never understand the complexity of it. We ourselves, we can't.
mhm,
We don't have the capacity.
mhm. It's true, but I think that there's also lots of reports of people meeting up and feeling like it is a fated or a destined thing, or that feeling of I've known you before and here we are meeting up again. That is
Yeah.
interesting to talk about.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. It's very common with people. Deja vu, very common thing. There's a fucking word for it.
mhm,
I mean, there's a thing we call it deja vu, deja vu, deja vu. What is that? Oh, well, I've seen this before, or I've been here before,
mhm.
but not, like I have been here before.
Well, right, but I'm also talking about when you meet someone and maybe you don't have that experience of having seen them or something, or reliving that meeting, but you just feel like I know you and I know you from someplace else, and I that but meeting you again feels like a kind of a prearranged thing,
Right, and
you know?
I think sometimes because the concepts or the idea of time and how we look at time now is has changed scientifically too. And the
Mhm,
idea that all time is happening at once is a very new concept. And that would make sense. Like if the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously, then then the future is predetermined. It's happening. Okay. So maybe when you meet somebody, you're just experiencing the future. You know, being like
mhm,
oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I know you. Of course I do. Because your brain, for some reason, puts all the little pieces together, all the variables,
mhm.
and then is like, oh, yeah, no, I met you, kinda, sorta. You know what I mean? In and of that, it makes sense to me because then I can put the pieces together.
Right.
I can go, okay, A plus B equals C. Gotcha.
Mhm,
I can solve for any of the other parts.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Let's see if I can
Yeah.
say let's see if I can say you know what I mean anymore in this fucking episode.
I know what you mean, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Holly. I
Hey,
appreciate that.
maybe the listeners don't, but I catch your drift.
They don't give a shit. Those listeners. Uh,
Oh,
but yeah, um
but that.
I've really gone down some deep rabbit holes on this one lately. So when you had brought it up, I was like, yeah, I completely think that the more and more I look at it and the more and more I spend time on it.
Mhm,
Yeah, there's something going on that where it's already happened. You
mhm.
know,
Is it already happened or that it's planned out? And
no, I think it's already happened. The more and more I think about it, I think it's already happened. I think our expression of time,
mhm,
um, we look at it very wrong,
Mhm.
and I think that it's all happening. And I think the best description of how I would describe how time probably is in The Watchmen, when Doctor Manhattan describes how he sees time all simultaneously,
Mhm.
and in and of that, that's how I see it. I got a fucking bug in front of my face, you little bastard. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I see it more as that it's all happening at once. And like I said, maybe when we have these moments of deja vu,
Mhm.
or I saw the future,
Right.
like maybe that thing that happened to me was just my young brain putting together a bunch of different variables and putting the equation together that
Right.
A plus B equaled C, and C was that point later on in my life.
Mhm.
It's a very basic explanation of that whole thing, because A plus B equaling C would be a way more complex equation. But maybe that's what happened. Or maybe my young brain experienced the future. I don't know. Did it put the pieces together? Did it experience the future? Or was it just me later on trying to rationalize this thing that happened in my brain?
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
oh, I don't fucking know.
Right. Yeah, it is this shamanic experience that everything is happening at once and everything is timeless, and
Yeah,
that our physical bodies need to experience time in a linear, progressive way, but the mind itself is a timeless thing, and the mind is just in the now.
right.
And we can project into the future and we can remember the past, but really the mind is operating in the right now, and that's all there really is the right now. Um,
Yeah, here and now.
the here and the now.
That's all that matters.
Right. So in that case, if whether something is fated or destined, it all depends on the decisions that are made in the here and now to some degree.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the here and the now is extremely important. I think that we do, we'd never make any progress if we never looked at the past, and we'd
Yeah.
also never make any progress if we never looked ahead at the future.
Mhm.
But it's what we do
Mhm.
in the here and now. I think that too many people spend too much time obsessing over the past,
Yes.
or conversely, obsessing about the future. Um,
Or right, but one of those other questions is why do some people's experiences be so different than other people's experiences? And what gets you lined up to have the Donald Trump experience versus, the Holly experience? I'm not saying I want the Donald Trump experience in any means, but
you're just
uh,
saying what makes this person have this experience and this person have this radically different experience. Why
yes.
doesn't everybody have the same experience? And I'd say that's because everybody's different and everybody needs a different experience. Well, I would say, not to get, way too deep. We're gonna get deep on this show, so, but it's tailored for you. It's so you can learn something. I do truly believe that. I think at the end of the day, when we get out of this life, it's all about what we learned about it. You know, where did it take us? From what point to what point?
Hmm.
Um,
Right. And so, and that kind of touches on this kind of, this is a slightly, I think, new age topic that relates to that life between life idea, is the soul contract, which is this idea that, you know, before you come here, you make a contract with other people, other entities, or contract that you're going to have certain experiences in the earth ride, and that this is this contract thing, but that it is a negotiable document later on. Should you have that belief system and the
Well,
inclination.
it's a negotiable document at any time. You can pick up a gun. You can end the negotiation. Like, you have that option. I'm not trying to advocate that option. I'm just saying that option is there.
True.
But there's all and in and of that, I have all kinds of problems with that. Like, so because there's all kinds of different concepts of that. Now, if I'm
Oh,
entering
for
into
real.
a contract with a being who's like, hey, dude, you're gonna go down there, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna have some shitty times, but you're gonna have some good times. And dude, let me tell you, the good times, they're gonna be pretty fucking good. I mean,
Right?
like, and you're gonna experience this thing, and at the end of the day, you're gonna learn something. And you're gonna come back, and things are gonna be cool. I'm down. That slap, I would be like, boot me into the fucking Matrix.
Mhm.
I'd be down. Give me the experience. I'll come back.
Mhm.
We'll talk.
Mhm.
But this idea that your soul, you've had no choice. Your
Mhm.
soul is put here.
Mhm.
You are bathed in sin when you get here.
Mhm.
And that the only way you can make it to this place of blissful eternity
Mhm.
is if you follow the path. Otherwise, you burn in hell. I cannot buy into that. I can't. I don't, and I won't.
Yeah,
You know.
that's not my experience with that either, but that is perhaps a form of a soul contract, or kind of a soul bargain or agreement that they're going to come to earth and
But in and of
yeah.
that, if that's the idea, if there is this omniscient being, this creator, whatever the fuck you want to call it, you
Uh-huh.
know, if if you if you come here to experience this, maybe it's we're experiencing part of the creation. I don't fucking know. But it makes a lot more sense if it's like, this is your movie. Have fun. See you when you're done. See you at Oscar season. Go experience your movie. Have your movie. Play Roy. For those of you who are Rick and fucking Morty fans. Uh, you know, Enjoy this life that you were given and then come back and we'll talk about what you learned. That I can buy into.
Right.
But to say, no, you've either got to be this extremely amazingly good person, or you can just like ask Christ to forgive you for all your sins, even though you've been a shitty, horrible motherfucker, and then you go to this beautiful place. Otherwise, you rot in hell and burn for eternity. That doesn't make any sense to me. That system just is like, really? That sounds like something we would create.
Right. That sounds like a system of fear.
Yeah, that sounds like something we would create, not like something that an
Right.
all-knowing being would create. Sounds like something that we would create, and I've often like had this do you remember the Inside the Actors Studio?
Yeah, a little
With
bit.
the guy there, he'd ask the actors. They'd have the actors and sometimes musicians and come in. At the end of it, he'd ask them all the questions. What's your favorite
Hmm.
dirty word and all the you know I used to watch it. It was like one of those guilty pleasures of mine. I would watch that show.
Hmm.
And I had always said to myself that if I was ever asked, what, if heaven exists and you're at the pearly gates, and what would you like St. Peter to say? And I've always said I'd love for him to just slap me on the back and be like, man, did we pull a fucking good one over on you? Because if it's a joke, fucking great. Like, if it's an experience, if it's a joke, if it's not what it seems,
Right.
you know?
Just like the human-sized version of SimCity.
Right, right. Exactly.
And we come here and we wanna play SimCity.
Right, we come out, we wanna be a sim for a lifetime. Or like I said, Roy, the
Mhm,
whole idea of, the Roy video game, you
mhm.
know? "Oh,
Yeah.
Marty, you fucked up. Why'd you go back to the carpet shop?"
Right. And I think that's one way to look at it, but I think there is this prevailing, there is this point of view that, you can that there is a little bit of an agreement that, not necessarily that like you're going to hell or that fire and brimstone thing, but you're going to go, you're going to meet up with somebody, you're going to have these different sets of experiences, and that you might have a particular outcome, and that there
Mhm,
is this potential that you could probably renegotiate that consciously somehow, um, should you want to, through either some kind of ceremonial means, or through different belief systems.
mhm. Yeah,
Which is a different tact. It is not that it's going to be this either pathway to heaven or hell. It's your show is your show, but if in the middle of your show you're not happy with where you're going, you can negotiate things and try to go someplace else.
mhm. And I don't know, I think that this I think the ride's set. I think once you're on it, the roller coaster is the roller coaster, or the movie's the movie. You're gonna go from point A to point B. But like I said, I think it's how you experience it. I think it's
Mhm.
what you take from it.
Mhm.
That's what's important.
Right.
Like when you go in to watch, fucking Son of a Woman or whatever the fucking movie may be.
Mhm.
It's what you take away from it.
Right.
You know, it's not, when you're in it it's not the individual scene. It's
Mhm.
all of it.
Mhm.
So I think that's what's important is it's what we take from all of this. If
Right.
we can learn something, when we die, because we're all fucking gonna die. Uh, even though we'd like to think that we're not. I'm just gonna carry on forever. Um, you know, you're not taking any of your possessions with you. You're not gonna take your car. You're not gonna take your house. You're not gonna take your clothes, your money. The only thing you have are your experiences. This experience. That's it. And I think that that is the ultimate important thing when it comes to this whole question of fate is what do we take from it at the end of the day? Or
Mhm.
in this case, at the end of the life,
Mhm.
you know? I don't know that I'm correct in how I think or how I feel,
Mhm.
but I'm just gonna keep continuing to question.
Right.
That's how I look at it. If somebody comes up with a better idea and I look at that and I like that, hey, sure, fuck
Mhm.
not. I'm not adverse to changing my mind. I had to. Listen. I see like movie trailers, for instance. Like today,
Mhm.
I messaged Matt, the co-host on the 40 and Slip. I said, Matt, what is this bag of shit? Bad Boys for Life. Will
Mhm.
Smith and now fat-faced Martin Lawrence. What is this? But somebody could convince me tomorrow that it's a good movie. I
Mhm.
doubt it. I doubt that that's going to be a good movie, but I'm more than willing to admit that somebody could convince me that Bad Boys for Life is going to be a good movie. And, the same thing goes with all kinds of other things. I've always been more than willing to believe that someone can change my mind
Mhm.
because that's how we should be. We should be willing to be fluid about things. be willing to
Mhm.
adapt,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know? And I think that's also something that's very, very important when you talk about these things about fate and having this ability to shift along this river,
Right.
as we describe it,
Mhm.
uh, um, is being able to bend and not break.
Well, right. So that is the other thing, is that what do you do if all of a sudden you find yourself in um less of fortunate circumstances, because a lot of this is about fortune, right? So what is your current circumstances? Is it fortunate or not? And most people, it's probably middle of the road, and they're not really thinking too deeply about it. Some people who are more philosophical are, but I think if you are on either end of the spectrum, you may think about it more often and be like, why am I on the outer limits of this kind of fortune thing?
Mhm.
And if you're in the more negative circumstances, you may want to be trying to, and you're in the fated thing is not going well. What do you do about it,
Yeah.
if anything?
Yeah.
Or are you kind of just in you're, like we said before, the boogeyman ride, where like the outcomes are never just, you know nothing's ever looking up.
Well, I think that, people there are gonna be people who come here and experience this life and have a shitty ride. And that's their lot, that's their cross to bear, so to speak. Does it make sense to me? No, it doesn't make sense to me, but I don't understand all the variables. Does it seem fair to me, like, that some kid could be born tomorrow and suffer horribly until they die? No, but I don't understand all the variables either. Do I think it was fair that fucking there was a guy named Hitler and he fucking because of him, millions of fucking Jews were killed?
Mhm.
No, but it happened,
Mhm.
and I don't understand all the variables.
Mhm.
And that's not me fucking condoning it either, by the way, people. Fucking try to even make that stretch. Um, but these things happen, and we as human beings are very limited. We have great capacity with our minds, amazing capacities with our minds to think up crazy things, fly fucking ships to the moon. Yes, I do believe it happened. Fucking people, you conspiracy theorists. Um, but we can't comprehend everything. There's just too much information. There's too much, and we try to wrap our heads around things. And I think that's why with a lot of this stuff, you see a lot of this symbolism. You see gods and goddesses. And this is we talked about demons, you know, how demons represented, different aspects of things. I think that these symbols are how, we've managed to wrap our heads around these really abstract, insanely complicated designs of our existence. And, for us to completely understand it, it's just not going to happen. Maybe the first human cyborg will be able to understand it. First person with a computer jacked into their fucking head. Elon Musk is working on that.
So that's a really horrific fate, in my opinion,
What's
to
up?
that we may become cyborgs.
We kind of already are. It's just that the device is in our hands. We kind of already are. The melding between man and machine it's not that far away. People, they went from being in our hands to people wanting them on their wrist. They've been trying to put them in glasses. Now they want to put them in contacts. Once they figure out the technology, it's all done but the crying, Holly. All done but the crying.
And that might be true, but I can still think that that's a horrible fate.
Well,
Like
I'm
I am not
I'm
sure that
very
that's not exactly what I want for my future.
well.
Is the cyborg potential?
I look at it like this: we're obviously creating something,
Mm.
and I think that this is. I'm beginning to think it's the next evolutionary step. This is the fate. It goes back to that George Carlin bit. Maybe we're here to make fucking plastic.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I said it again. Jesus Christ. Stop it. Um, but maybe we are. Maybe we're here to do this thing so that something else comes beyond us. And maybe the start of that is where we meld with this technology. And then from there comes the AI, which, wipes us out and then we're done.
Which that may be possible. I just find that to be very pessimistic. Um,
Well,
a
listen,
very pessimistic outcome, and I have so many questions about the things that we would give up, such as human touch, sex,
oh
um,
yeah.
you know,
No, I agree. I
all
agree.
different kinds of forms of sensuality. Like why we would ever want to go in that direction.
Yeah, but I think that's where it's going. Like I said, these things that we carry around, you know,
Right.
they're extensions of this cyborg thing. Like we carry around computers now in our pockets. So for me, the stretch to having those things accessible in your body is not a stretch for the human race. It's where it goes from there is where it gets scary. You know, I don't know.
Because to me, to start incorporating technology into the human body and becoming a cyborg, I feel like that is when we are giving up that other word, our free will and our
Yeah.
individual sovereignty to be um, you know, organic, orgasmic creatures on the planet.
Well, it goes back to that whole I can't think of the philosophy of the philosopher. The idea of, if you build a boat and then over the course of time you repair the boat and you replace parts on the boat, and in the end you've replaced every part on the boat. Is it still the same boat? It's an age old question. If we replace all the parts on us, are we still the same person? Like if those fucking monkey tests over in China go through and they're able to fucking grow organs for people
Hmm.
with no chance of rejection,
Right. But to
and
me,
they replace every single part of you except for your brain, are you still Holly?
no. And it's
How do
especially
you
not
but how do you know that?
because it comes from a monkey, or if it comes from a metallic thing, then that is not native or indigenous
So
to my
so
own human
so
body.
so no, so if you have a heart transplant, you're not Holly anymore?
Not if they replace the whole thing, the whole body. I'm not talking about one part. I'm talking
Oh,
about
yeah. No, yeah, no, I'm
the
talking about the whole
whole,
yeah, the whole
the,
body,
the
except for
whole
your
kit,
brain.
the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, and caboodle.
Then no, it's not quite the same as the way you started out. I
I
mean,
think it's an interesting question.
it is an interesting question.
And I think it's one that, it's going to get posed very, very soon. The idea, and I'm going to be doing a show with David Batdorf pretty soon. He just messaged me. I got to I'll probably get in touch with him tonight, see if he wants to shoot the shit later on. But uh, this stuff is coming. These technologies are coming. And, you know, we kind of got way off topic, but it is kind of on topic because it goes back to that whole idea of fate and where we're going. And
Well,
I think this is where we're going. We're a technologically inclined race.
well, right, but I think that part of the thing is that because we give so much weight to our fate and our technological ability, that we are um, not exerting our free will enough in our um, own powers of sovereignty and making decisions for the individual, in lieu for the bigger, you know, the bigger collective. And then we just become, like, on Star Trek, this, like, the race of cyborgs. But to me, that's not my vision for
Borg.
humanity. The Borg, right?
Resistance is futile. Yeah.
The resistance is futile,
It's my
exactly.
favorite Star Trek villains. It's a fucking Borg.
Right? Or what are those, the Cybermen in Doctor
Yeah.
who are, um, you know, in their ability that they've gained of added durability, and
But I mean, these are
they lose their humanity, and part of
but
that
but it but
humanity
it,
is to,
but it,
like, be able to manifest your energy in a creative way.
right. But again, all of these things that we're looking at they're all speculations. They're all either fictional depictions or they're speculations on the parts of other people. We don't know yet. When these things happen, they're going to happen, and they are happening. Elon Musk has been talking about this computer brain interface now for a while, and he's been saying for a while now that it's a matter of time. It's gonna be out there. And this is a guy that sells flamethrowers to people, so I believe him. And he sends rocket ships into fucking space. Like,
Mhm,
who the fuck else is doing that? Not too many people. Ooh, fucking Richard Branson, is he the only other
mhm,
one?
mhm,
So I just, to me, it just seems this is the logical course.
mhm.
We're this technologically dependent, technologically advanced civilization. We're just going in this direction. Now, do I think that, uh, th- th- because we're going in this direction and this is where we're going to wind up, that there's all of the things that are happening are good because of it? No, shitty things happen in the process of things happening. Good things happen in the process of things happening. But I think that eventually, ultimately, this is where we wind up. This is where fate is bringing us as a people, and it's our own creation.
Well, and I think that part of it, the creation part of it, is a big part of it, though. We can kind of create our own destiny, and we can also have a collective vision for our destiny.
Hmm.
You know, my concern is when the collective vision is for a race of cyborgs versus for, you know,
But Collie, what I'm telling you is we're already there. We're already there, right here. That little thing you carry around all day, you're already in it. And see, the thing is your brain can't wrap its head around the idea that you are because it's outside of your body right now. But you're already in it. Anytime, like, somebody asks you a question and you pick up your phone and you Google it, you're it. You are in some way being a cyborg. And it's hard for us to wrap our heads around that because it's separate. It's out here. It's not within, it's out here. But it's a short stretch to go from here to inside. It's a really short stretch.
right. But to me, that is like a kind of crossing a boundary. Is when
Right.
you
And
start.
I understand why you feel that way.
And I understand, like, what you're saying is that if you're using technology, you are already kind of plugged into the cyborg interface.
Mhm.
I totally get that you're saying that, and anyone who's using iPhones and iPads and internet technology is part of that.
Yep.
But to me, it is a kind of crossing a line when you start physically plugging someone's brain in like they did in the Matrix,
Mhm.
and then you have the people in the pods that are like giant batteries.
Yep.
And then, you have to have Neo come along and, do that.
Save everybody.
Or what is it, Morpheus, and like start unplugging people.
Yeah. There was a book I read because I played the video game when I was a kid. William Gibson's Neuromancer, which basically like defines cyberpunk. It's wildly acclaimed as the first cyberpunk novel.
Hmm.
And that's where they talked about jacking into the matrix, like people actually having computers in their brain that their brains can access and
Hmm.
plugging into the internet, um,
Hmm.
and navigating online in that way. These hackers and so on and so forth. um, I just think it's the way technology's going, excuse me, and people are pushing for it, so it's going to get there. um, is and I don't think there's anything that anyone can do to stop it. I think the train has already left the station, so to speak. Um, but like I agree with you. Like incorporating these things into us, is it the right way to go? I don't think so, but it's going to happen. You know, and here's the thing. Like I was talking with David about the whole monkey organ idea. It brings up all these philosophical questions, these or these morality issues,
Hmm.
you know um but like I said to David when he had brought that up, I said, yeah, but if you're a person that needs a lung transplant, that question becomes a whole fucking lot easier, because it's all about perspective. you know and I think when it comes to these technology things, um and boy, have we gotten way off fucking topic.
Well, not
But no,
exactly,
no, but
because
I'm
this
but I'm
this is
enjoying it.
about fate,
But
and
right,
this is
right,
about choice,
right,
right?
and
And
where we're
to
going.
me, some of it is this idea of resigning to our fate, which is
Right,
kind of like the direction that the powers of be are steering us,
right.
or exercising our individual free will and creative power to self-determine our outcome,
Mhm.
right? So this is me saying, no way do I ever want to be jacked into some computer with an outlet in my head.
But
I
if
don't want
but
that
if
for
but
me.
if the
And
doctor came to you tomorrow, okay? Like, let's say you go to the doctor tomorrow, Holly, and the
right,
doctor says, "Holly, you have some heart issues,
right.
and I have to put a pacemaker inside your body to keep your heart beating normally." Are you gonna stop him from doing that?
So this is like a matter of degrees, right? It depends on the
But see, it
it's a
is.
slippery slope, and this is what
Yes, yes.
in ethics they talk about, that slippery slope. And when do you go too far?
Mhm.
And to some degree that's a personal choice. Like for me, a device that helps my body's operation is okay, but I need to know that it's not going to interface with my free will and kind of corrupt my ability to make decisions for myself. And it also is going to determine, like, if I need a pacemaker, is it now when I'm in my 40s, or is it when I'm in my 70s, or is it
Right.
when I'm in my 80s? And those are all different answers to that,
Yeah.
because the risk of the surgeries are one thing, the technology is another thing. um, what are any other alternative treatments? Like, how bad is the, arrhythmia in my heart?
Mhm.
Assuming that the doctor is saying I need a pacemaker, I would assume that the
Right,
arrhythmia is
but
bad.
yeah,
But
no, I
do you
would
know what I
say,
mean?
but when I pose this hypothetical question, you need to have it. You know what I mean? Like you've got to have it, or you're gonna have problems. That
Right.
that sort of thing. But you're right. You're right, and to varying degrees, you're also wrong, because, like we were talking about, slippery slope. You know, there's it, and here's the other thing. When I say that you're wrong, it's not that I'm saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is it goes back to what you were talking about, where at some point one thing might be true for you, whereas another point it might not be. And what's true for me might not be true for you when it comes to these issues.
Agreed, and we see this all the time. And some of the listeners, most of them don't know, but they, will put it out there that I do work in a medical office, and this is something I see all the time, where patients will come in and they will be very much about low medication. They don't want too much medication, and then something will happen, and then all of a sudden that they are faced with the choice of reconciling their beliefs on maybe taking an opiate.
Mm-hmm.
They maybe have never seen themselves taking an opiate, but now they are faced with such crushing pain. They need to do something or they're going out of their mind. So now they need to make a decision that they never thought they would do because they weren't faced with a particular set of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they're that person who has been very, very healthy. They haven't wanted, they've been very active, and all of a sudden they've had some breathing issues, and they've never thought that they would need an inhaler. And in fact, when they do the chest x-ray, they have massive lung cancer for whatever reason. And now it's even beyond using an inhaler. It's being on 24-hour oxygen. And now they are basically, a setup to machine. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, I do see your point that with your circumstances changing, the amount of plugging in that you are willing to accept can change
Mm-hmm.
just based on quality of life. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
you know what? Because sometimes being plugged in is a better option
Then
than not
checking the
being
fuck out.
than checking out. But sometimes it's not.
Right. No,
But sometimes it's
I
not.
agree. And I think there's varying degrees to that, and that's why you see people make the choice to end their life sometimes. Because they just don't want to deal with that.
Mhm.
If anybody who's seen anyone die from cancer, some of the stuff that happens, whether it be chemotherapy or whether it be how it makes you wither away and just fucking die or whatever the case may be with that issue. I mean, there are people that make that decision. They say, fuck it, I'm tapping out,
It's
you know?
true.
So,
But to
it's
me, it's about, sometimes we are not making the best decisions in our best interest earlier on, and then we are faced to these more dire circumstances later on because we were not as conscious about what we wanted to do. For example, in this kind of health rate related thing, we did not exercise our best judgment in our own care of our body to get us to a point where, it's led us down this path
Mhm.
where, now your health isn't quite so robust, and now you need to make a more dire decision versus if earlier in your life you make healthier choices, you may not have to make such an extreme choice later in life.
Right, but this goes back to the idea of, well, maybe you made those choices early on in life because you needed to experience this.
Yes,
Maybe.
maybe you came for um you know the ride
Maybe
called.
you came here for the triple bypass. Yes, Chris, you ordered the triple bypass in your life. We'll get that right up for you. That'll
You
take
love
you
that.
about
That's the bacon special.
48 years.
Yes. Then one day you'll have the crushing chest pain and shortness of breath, and
And hopefully an ambulance nearby.
yeah,
I mean, a heart attack destroyed my father. So,
yeah.
um, but
But
maybe not destroyed him. He's still alive, but it changed. I mean, my father looks nothing like he used to. He was
mm,
a heavier set guy.
mhm,
Shorter than me, stocky.
mhm, mhm,
Now he's like thinner than I am.
mhm. Yeah.
But is again, it goes back to that idea of, is this what he was? Were those choices made because that's what he needs to experience?
Oh, absolutely. And is that something encoded in your energy, how does that system? How does that all work? You
Right.
know, you know, is this
And
and
are
is
we
this
are we all that interconnected?
Well,
Are
right,
we,
and
because his experience is in part my experience.
right, and so, like, in the world of energetic healing, this is one of those things that some of these things that you are physically dealing with on a bodily level are ancestral. They are It's energies carried forward in your genetic past, in your DNA, you know, from your previous lineages. So this, whatever it is, those are like hereditary conditions with
Mhm.
an energetic also basis that you are not, necessarily have anything to do with your decisions except for the fact that you incarnated in a certain family. And that some of these things also potentially come from other lifetimes or parallel lifetimes. If you believe in those things where you are coming into this lifetime with experiences in another lifetime that you are resolving. So it's like, the arc of
Mhm.
multiple lifetimes, but how it's playing out
Right.
here, which is, your fate in this lifetime is interconnected with these possible other lifetimes, timelines, possible other dimensional experiences that may not even be on Earth if you want to like think in a very kind of creative
Uh-huh.
way.
Yeah, and, and you start going down those little rabbit holes, like the multiple versions of you, and whether or not like you're here to experience like every version of
Hmm.
yourself. I mean, could you
Right.
imagine?
Right. Well, maybe you come from a cyborg civilization and you come here and you want to become a cyborg
Or
because
maybe
that's what.
we want to experience humanity. Maybe we're just friggin' artificially intelligent beings trying to experience humanity. That's also a possibility. I don't fucking know. I start thinking about this stuff and my brain just goes.
This is the show where we talk and we have no answers.
Yeah, none, zero. I got zero. But yeah,
Right.
I think on that note we'll wrap it. We'll wrap it up tonight. But I think that we do have some type of a fate. But I think that there is some wiggle room for free will along that plotted course. And that's my final words on it. I don't know what yours are. I'll kick it to you, Holly, before I end this thing.
I do think that we have a certain kind of a basic script in how closely we follow it or how much we deviate and do our own thing now that we're here is our own choice. I think this is like that coloring outside the lines versus coloring in the lines. You know what? Most people maybe are just going to color in the lines and just do the kind of the basic plan. And if you want to color outside the lines and do your own thing, you are empowered to do that. Um, this gets into other topics we can talk about, is this thing like the law of attraction, your energetic field, bring things into your life. We
Hmm.
can talk more about reincarnation another time and
Oh yeah.
other things that kind of branch off into this idea of fate. And certainly those who know that I'm really into astrology. In astrology, the basic premise is that your kind of basic fate footprint is determined, but how you deal with those energies is your choice, and how you navigate those energies is your choice. And it does somewhat have to do with your kind of personality imprint. So
Hmm.
um, those are also um, perspectives that we entertain. So you know, I think we should just kind of slip it in and slip it out. We've slipped in. Let's just slip out of this.
On that note.
I'm getting silly.
Oh my
so
god.
so awkward.
Oh.
Well, you started by getting it up, so now we're gonna slip
Yeah,
it out.
there we go. All right, everybody. This has been Slip Into the Night, episode 3, Fate and Destiny. Uh,
Slip into your
Definitely.
destiny.
That's right. Like this show. If you do, if you don't, give it a little thumbs down, comment, subscribe. Check out our good friends. The links are all underneath. Dred Funn, Matt Knapp at Bigfoot Crossroads, Cryptid Tales, Para Breakdown. And as always, check out the show on anchor.fm/the 40 slip. That's where you can download us. And until next week, from Holly and I, good night.